Welcome back to Director's Choice, where we explore all things cinema. Today, we're going to be talking about the chronological order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you're a fan of the MCU, you know that the series is a sprawling, interconnected universe that spans multiple film and television shows. But have you ever wondered what the chronological order of the MCU actually is? Well, wonder no more. The chronological order of the MCU begins with Captain America, the first Avenger, which takes place during World War II. This film introduces us to Steve Rogers, a frail but determined young man who becomes a super soldier thanks to a secret government experiment. Steve then battles against the evil Hydra organization led by Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving. Next up is Captain Marvel, which takes place in the 1990s and introduces us to Carol Danvers, a former U.S. Air Force pilot who becomes the superhero Captain Marvel after being exposed to alien technology. This film explores the origin story of Carol and sets up her important role in the wider MCU. After Captain Marvel, the next film in the MCU is Iron Man, which takes place in the present day and introduces us to Tony Stark, the genius inventor who becomes Iron Man. This film follows Tony's journey from weapons manufacturer to superhero and sets up many of the key themes and characters that will appear throughout the rest of the MCU. The Incredible Hulk takes place around the same time as Iron Man and introduces us to Bruce Banner, a scientist who transforms into the Hulk after a lab accident. This film explores the consequences of Bruce's transformation and sets up his complicated relationship with the military. Iron Man 2 takes place after the events of the first film and sees Tony Stark dealing with the fallout from his decision to become Iron Man. This film introduces us to a number of key characters, including Black Widow and War Machine, and sets up the next phase of the MCU. Thor takes place concurrently with Iron Man 2 and introduces us to the titular character, a powerful Asgardian god who is banished to Earth after angering his father, Odin. This film explores the clash between science and magic, and sets up the conflict between Thor and his adopted brother, Loki. The Avengers brings together Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye to battle against the alien invasion led by the villainous Loki. This film marks a major turning point in the MCU, setting up the next phase of the series and establishing the Avengers as Earth's mightiest heroes. Iron Man 3 takes place after the events of the Avengers, and sees Tony Stark dealing with the aftermath of the battle in New York City. This film explores Tony's PTSD and introduces us to the villainous Mandarin, who turns out to be a decoy created by a disgruntled former employee of Stark Industries. Thor: The Dark World takes place after the events of the Avengers, and sees Thor battling against the Dark Elf Malekith, who seeks to use a powerful weapon known as the Ether to plunge the universe into darkness. This film explores the relationship between Thor and his love interest Jane Foster, and sets up the next phase of the MCU. Captain America: The Winter Soldier takes place 2 years after the events of the Avengers, and sees Steve Rogers battling against a new threat, the Winter Soldier, who is revealed to be his long-thought dead best friend, Bucky Barnes. This film explores themes of trust, loyalty, and government corruption, and sets up the next phase of the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy takes place after the events of the Avengers, and introduces us to a new group of heroes, including Peter Quill, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Groot. This film sees the team banding together to stop the villainous Ronan the Accuser from using an Infinity Stone to destroy the planet Xandar. This film also features a standout soundtrack filled with classic rock and pop hits from the 70 seconds and 80 seconds. Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 2 takes place shortly after the events of the first film and sees the Guardians dealing with the fallout from their battle against Ronan. This film explores the relationships between the team members. Avengers: Age of Ultron takes place shortly after the events of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and sees the Avengers battling against the sentient robot Ultron, who seeks to wipe out humanity. This film introduces us to new characters like the twins Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and sets up the next phase of the MCU. Ant-Man takes place after the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron, and introduces us to Scott Lang, a former thief who becomes the superhero Ant-Man after being recruited by the scientist Hank Pym. This film explores the science behind the shrinking technology used by Ant-Man and sets up the next phase of the MCU. Captain America: Civil War takes place 1 year after the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron, and sees the Avengers split into two factions, one led by Captain America and the other by Iron Man, over a disagreement about government oversight. This film introduces us to new characters like Black Panther and Spider-Man and sets up the next phase of the MCU. Doctor Strange takes place concurrently with Captain America: Civil War and introduces us to Dr. Stephen Strange, a brilliant but arrogant surgeon who becomes a master of the mystical arts after a car accident. This film explores the concept of alternate realities and introduces us to new villains like Caecilius and the powerful entity known as Dormammu. Spider-Man: Homecoming takes place after the events of Captain America: Civil War and sees Peter Parker balancing his life as a high school student with his superhero duties as Spider-Man. This film introduces us to a new version of the classic Spider-Man villain, the Vulture, and explores Peter's relationships with his mentor, Tony Stark, and his crush, Liz. Thor: Ragnarok takes place shortly after the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron, and sees Thor imprisoned on the planet Sakaar, where he must battle his old friend, the Hulk, in a gladiator-style arena. This film introduces us to new characters like the Grandmaster and Valkyrie, and sets up the events of Avengers: Infinity War. Black Panther takes place after the events of Captain America: Civil War, and sees T'Challa, the king of the technologically advanced African nation of Wakanda, battling against his cousin, Killmonger, who seeks to usurp the throne. This film explores themes of identity, family, and the role of technology in society, and features a predominantly black cast. Avengers: Infinity War takes place shortly after the events of Thor: Ragnarok, and sees the Avengers teaming up with the Guardians of the Galaxy to stop the powerful villain Thanos from collecting all 6 Infinity Stones and using them to wipe out half of all life in the universe. This film features an ensemble cast of over 20 main characters and sets up the events of Avengers: Endgame. Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place after the events of Captain America: Civil War, and sees Scott Lang teaming up with Hank Pym and his daughter Hope, who has taken on the mantle of the Wasp, to rescue Hank's wife Janet from the quantum realm. This film explores the concept of quantum physics and features some of the most inventive action sequences in the MCU. Endgame. Avengers: Endgame takes place 5 years after the events of Avengers: Infinity War, and sees the remaining Avengers traveling through time to collect the Infinity Stones and undo the damage caused by Thanos. This film features an emotional conclusion to many of the character arcs that have been built up over the previous 22 films, and sets up the next phase of the MCU. And that's it for our chronological journey through the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which film is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching.